Pleasant good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to our listening audience. This is Sister Curleen Bean, and I'm coming to you live this morning. And here we have another episode of Methodist Memories and Appreciation Hour. Today, we have a super special guest in the house today. We're talking with Miss Tiffany Smith Armbrister, and we are so delighted. So, before we get started, we just want to invoke God's presence with us. So, let us pray. Our God and our Father, we are deeply grateful for your love. We appreciate that we are here today. We ask and we beseech your blessing on this arrangement. Have your Holy Spirit to really permeate us so that we are able to ask and answer the questions that our audience need to hear. Please help me as I continue to promote our Methodists throughout, not only in this church and this country, but throughout the world to our listeners. So I thank you for this. And once again, I ask your Holy Spirit to be with us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now, folks. Here is the big thing. Miss Tiffany Smith, right there. And we are going to ask her to introduce herself because we're so happy to have her here with us.
Yes, thank you, Curly. And I just wanted to point out, because my husband would not be happy, it's just Tiffany Armbrister. Yes.
We
So I
apologize to
just want to let
Tiffany's
you.
husband,
Yes.
Tiffany Armbrister. She's not a modern woman, all right? Tiffany Armbrister.
Yes, I'm old school. You leave and cleave. So, yes, Curly, I thank you for this opportunity, and I feel honored to be here with your listening audience and share with them some memories of my experience as being a Methodist and what I would like to be the take-home message, if you remember nothing else from this, but to simply remember that, it's Methodism and being a Methodist is something that I have always been proud to say, and I've always been happy to proclaim that I'm a Methodist and that I attend St. Paul's Methodist Church. I've attended no other denomination. This has always been my church and my worship of choice from I was a
Amen.
child.
Amen.
And so I can credit that to my parents because they weren't individuals who moved from church to church to church to church. They always instilled in my brother and I that once you're grounded in something and once you found your niche, per se, you stick with it, you become loyal to it, and you help it to grow. And so they were the perfect examples for me in being a Methodist. Although my mom, before she got married to my father, she was a part of the Moravian church. And from the history that I've been told, the Moravian and Methodist is very similar. So it
Yes,
wasn't a
they are.
hard transition for her becoming a Methodist. So I she always told me from I was a child that I was born in the Methodist church where she was pregnant with me while she was here. So all those great hymns and stuff I was listening to as a fetus
Yes.
in her womb. So I would credit my um, dedication and loyalty to the Methodist church to my parents because they were very good examples for me. And it's not just I'm just going just because of my parents, but I developed a love for Methodism on my own. And as a young individual, I think it's important when we're doing things of this nature, media and stuff, to let younger people know that it's okay to be Methodist. It's actually a beautiful atmosphere to be a part of. And I've found that within our church, we are very welcoming and we're very supportive. I mean, everybody has their issues, no
Right.
matter which denomination, Christian or not, you have your issues. But overall, the big picture of Methodism is so beautiful, and it would be a disservice to this denomination or to this entity to say that, oh, it's too old or it's too old fashioned, because I think that's where the beauty
That's the
of
beauty of it.
Methodism is.
Yes.
Those hymns that John and Charles Wesley
Absolutely.
wrote, and you just feel the connection of the hymns with the Bible, and they're biblically based. They're
Yes.
not just hymns that they just would have just created offhand. They would have had them biblically based, and they would have been rooted in the Holy Spirit. And I think it's so beautiful to sit back and listen, and especially on a Sunday morning when we sit hitting those hymns good.
Yes, yes, yes.
The atmosphere changes when we are singing those. So I think it's beautiful to rely on the history of Methodism and not necessarily just say, oh, it's just an old denomination, because that's a part of the pride that you can talk about, saying, hey, my denomination didn't just come about 20 years ago. 10 years ago. You can say that it's a deep history behind this, and that, the progression from then until now is still marvelous, in my opinion.
It is.
Yes.
So tell me, Tiffany, you were baptized, should I say that? Were you christened?
Christened,
You were
yes.
christened as a
Baby.
baby. Your parents are the ones who keep telling you what the pastor name who baptized.
Yes, Reverend Perry.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Reverend Perry. And I remember they told me that when when we went up for the baptism, you hand the baby to the Reverend.
Right.
He said, I think my mom said, I didn't make a sound. She said, this one love water. That's
You
what
was
the Reverend
ready.
said. So this one loves water. I don't think I made a sound. Either it's going to be I didn't make a sound, or I cried profusely. But I think I remember saying me, because I was a chunky baby. And so when he handed me and he poured the water on my head, he's like, I didn't make a sound. I just loved it. Say, yes, pour it on me, Lord.
So you were also involved with St. Paul's, the school, the college itself?
Oh, yes. Like I said, this has been the only church I've attended. And outside of kindergarten, St. Paul's Methodist College is the only school that I attended as well. So I would have been in St. Paul's College from grade 2 or grade 1, I believe, up until I graduated. So my root in Methodism is not just in the church, but it's also in my education, because with Methodism, we stand firm in education, and we're very gung-ho about children and their education. And so what my parents would have done for me is, since there was a school attached to the church, it was only fitting, in their opinion, that I then attend St. Paul's Methodist College from lower primary up until graduation. And my involvement with the church and the school went hand in hand, because I would have been involved with the Sunday school. I went through the process of graduation into the church system from infancy up until adulthood. So I would have went to Sunday school, gotten confirmed. You have youth group, and when you are a youth at that time, we had programs that we were involved in, and I would have been selected. Some of the youth in the church would have been selected to attend an organization called the Youth Encuentro, and that's when all young people from the ages, I think, of 16 to 25, they come together, and that's from the Caribbean and the Americas. We all get together for a seminar, a week-long seminar. I would have been in different countries, and I remember the two that I attended were the ones in Antigua and then in Jamaica. So being a part of the church and being involved in it afforded me the opportunity to attend these conferences, and they were beautiful conferences to see young people coming together with one mind, on one accord, to worship God and to share their culture, because we were from different islands, different countries. So it was an opportunity for us to share our culture, share our experiences, and share our love for God, and we worship, and we did crafts and all these things. And so it would have been myself and a lot of other individuals in the church at that time who were of the same age. We all went together with Faye Smith, Maisie Brooks. She would have passed away, God bless her soul.
Maisie Brooks?
Is it Brooks? Yes.
Okay, no, I don't know. I'm asking.
Yes,
Maisie Brooks. Okay.
Is it Maisie? Miss Brooks. I don't remember her first name,
All
but
right.
I know it's Miss Brooks.
Miss Brooks.
Yes. And so they would have been the ones who were chaperones and helped us to get our things together. And so I just want to let young people know that when you become involved in the church and you are dedicated and you do things that make your character look good, because, you know, when you're leaving a country, people are going to make sure that they carry the ones who are going to be a good representation of A, the church, and B, the country, because it's different countries. So once you fall in line with that, those things are afforded to you. And so I would have been able to go twice to the youth encuentro. Like I said, the first time was in Antigua. That was the best one in my opinion, because we stayed in Jolly, I think the hotel was called Jolly Ranger Hotel, and that was the only time we were at a hotel. All the other times we were at a dorm rooms in on a school campus. So I was happy that I got to experience that first youth encuentro in Antigua, and we ate at the restaurants. They treated us so well. These little young children running around, eating up the people's food, running around their hotel. So it was the perfect experience, the Antigua one. That was the best in my opinion. And so all the others would have been on campuses and was more like a camp feel, whereas Antigua was more like a vacation, right. Vacation for us. So we didn't have that experience anymore. But those of us who went to that Antigua trip, we can say that, yes, that was the best.
Tell me, if you could recall, some of the persons from here that went to Antigua at the same time.
Yes. So at the time of Antigua, we had myself, Rosa Moore, Zephanie Moore.
Hold on. Rosa Moore. Okay.
Zephanie.
That's Sister Amanda's daughter.
Daughters. Both of them went. Rosa and Zephanie, I believe.
And Zephania?
Zephanie. Yes.
Right.
And then we had, I know, who was else? Who else was there? Trying to remember Rosa.
Any male?
Antigua. Because remember, we didn't have much male participants at that time for Antigua. I know Aunt Faye was the chaperone. And then we had some other children from the other three churches. Because I remember Miss Lynn Forbes Thames was a chaperone because we stayed in the room together. I remember some of the other children from St. David's and St. Andrews. I remember Edith Bodie. Okay. She's now at St. Andrews, I think.
She's at St. Andrews.
Yes, St. Andrews. She was there.
A chaperone.
Okay. I don't remember, because like I said, once I get in those atmosphere, I leave Bahamas beyond. I go make all kind of friends with everybody else. So I was hopping from country to country. Of course, you know, I went to Jamaica. Then I was at Panama. I was at Barbados, Curacao. So I was all over the place. I didn't even remember who was there from my own country. Because I was too busy making friends. St. Kitts and St. Nevis, I was all over with them.
That's an excellent thing to do. You were a great representative.
I tell you, I represented the Bahamas
for the Bahamas and St. Paul's Methodist
I can remember all the friends I met. Who went with us for the church? I don't know.
Okay, well, tell us about that. Someone who you met who was still active and doing some things in the Methodist Church.
Okay, you mean from Antigua trip?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, because there's one individual. I'm going to tell you the scenario. Okay, so, you know, it's a week long of activities. Every day we're doing different things. And on this particular day, it was like a free day where you could have toured the island and everything. And for some reason, like I said, because I was moving around from country to country, on this day, the Bahamas, we were together. But it's like the group went ahead of me, and I was just stuck downtown Antigua. I don't know anything about the country. Downtown Antigua, and when I look up, it's like I'm there by myself. I didn't see anybody from our contingency. And so what I had to do was be smart. I said, okay, Tiff, you got to put your thinking cap on. So I saw another group of people because it was downtown. So it wasn't like it was just us only. It was like tourists and different persons traveling about. And so I saw a group that looked like they were a part of the Antigua trip. And mind you, I may have been 16, 17 at the time. And so I just started inching with them. I started in closer and closer as they move. Until one of them was like, "Excuse me, are you lost?" And I said, "To be honest, I don't know where my group is, and I just want to stay with you guys because y'all look like y'all are a part of the youth metro." And they were for St. Kitts and Nevis, and they say, "Sure, come." And we went and we shopped and we ate. We went to a KFC that was there, and they carried me up and down, introduced me to their friends, and all the guys was like, "Oh wow, Bahama mama." I said, "Hey, take it easy." But I was able to make a connection, and one of the individuals, her name is Zell Charles. We connected a little more than the others, and she's from St. Kitts. And no, St. Vincent, she's from St. Vincent. And we've been talking up until then. We found each other on Facebook because obviously we exchanged numbers, exchanged gifts at the time, and we kept in touch. And we're friends on Facebook, and we even WhatsApp from time to time. So she's one individual from the first encuentro that I met and I still keep in contact with. And even from the Jamaica encuentro, there was a young man, his name was Jason, and we were able to connect over there as well. And I had his number. We would call each other from time to time, and like I told you before we began, my voice is a dead ringer for who I am. So
Right.
whenever I called them and I'm trying to disguise my voice, like, oh, this, they already know it's
No.
me, because who else have this voice? So we would have lost touch though, Jason in Jamaica, because I would have changed phones, he would have moved, and then we weren't able to connect again. But Zell Charles, she's an individual that I've watched, like we watched each other grow up. She got married. She showed me pictures of her child, her husband, and I did the same with her. And so we still had that connection even now, even though I never traveled to St. Vincent to meet her. She never came here, but who's to say what can happen in the future, because we're still a connection from the first encuentro at 16, 17 years old. And Kelly Jolly, Reverend Kelly Jolly in the Nassau Circus,
Oh,
she was
yes.
at the Antigua conference, and we've been friends from then until now too. And I remember when Kelly decided to leave, because she was in pre-med, she decided, she got the conviction there at that encounter, because Reverend Roll even teach. That's when I first met Reverend Roll too, because he preached in Antigua.
Who's our bishop at this time?
Our bishop at the time, Reverend
Okay.
Roll, was in Antigua. He did a message, and Kelly and I met in Antigua. And I remember when she made the decision to leave medicine to go into the ministry. And Kelly was so sweet and kind. And I just remember that day right now talking to you. I can remember the day that she made the decision to move forward into ministry. And now, how many years later, we are still friends from that as well.
She's an excellent minister.
Oh, beautiful inside and
My
out.
goodness.
That's what I'm saying. So this is the opportunities that arose for me from this Methodist church being involved. Like, I have friendships that are going to last the span of my life because we had this connection in Methodism. Because all of us who were there were Methodist young people, fired up, ready to roll, come with ideas and initiatives, just ready to serve and worship the Lord.
Well, what do you think is what's happening now? Do we still have those people who are fired up, who are ready to go? And if we don't, what do you think is lacking? What do you think is perhaps the cause of it?
That's something that I question often, because even though when I was younger, our youth group and our Sunday school was so dynamic and so vibrant, a lot of the individuals that I would have grown up with in this very church are no longer coming here. for whatever reason it would be. And that's something that I wish I could sit down with perhaps one or two of them and be like, what was the reason that you left? Like, I could never see myself. I literally can never see myself talking about leaving the church to go and join another denomination or even join in another church. I'm like, it would be counterproductive for me, because I'm like, I've been here so long. My root is here. My parents are here. The foundation has already been built. It's almost as if you're going to leave a big, beautiful home that you would have built from the ground up to say, I just want to leave that and go build another one. How many years is it going to take you to build that other home that you already have established right here? And so when you ask me what do I think, I don't know, because I don't know their experience. Like, I could never. That's why I made sure that my husband was a Methodist before I left, because it wasn't going to be a situation where, because he's a Baptist or he's this or that, I have to now leave my church because you have to be obedient to your husband. So I made sure, boy, but hey,
You're a Methodist.
he's going to be a Methodist, because I'm not leaving my church. I made that decision. So that was like a factor in my spouse, the person that I would want to marry moving forward, because obviously it's not going to be something called divorce or anything. So I have to make sure that, we are equally yoked in all aspects. And then for me, it was important that church was a part of that. So, what I would think...
Would that be some sort of advice that you would give to younger persons?
Yes.
In the church right now?
I would say, okay, if you're at the age where you're now thinking about starting a family, building a family, one of the major things, especially if you're involved in your church and you're rooted and your background is here, it would be wise to look for an individual who is of the same denomination as you, or maybe they may not be a part of your church, and you can then bring them to your church and have them become a Methodist, get the right hand of fellowship and all that. So that's something that you can consider. But then who's to say? The people say love is love, and you have to make sure that.
But we have to be evenly
But you
yoked.
have to be wise.
You know
what I'm saying? So what is the reason? I don't know. A lot of the individuals, and I see them around, and I guess I never had the courage to really ask them, hey, what's the reason why you're not coming back to church, or why you're not here? But just from looking at their life, a lot of them, it's because they would have married somebody of a different denomination, and the others it may be work, and then it's like they're like, church started to get boring for them, or somebody said something to them and it rubbed them the wrong way, and so now they don't want to come. I'm like, nobody is going to cause me to leave my church. And I've had many situations right here at St. Paul's Methodist Church where it could have caused me to say, hey, I'm not going to be there anymore. Mind you, I lived in Eleuthera for about 2 to 3 years, and I would have helped the MCCA Methodist Church in Eleuthera while I was still a member here of St. Paul's Methodist Church. And so this is what I'm going to show you, the dedication, because in Eleuthera, because I was a new teacher and they saw that I was a Christian lady, a lot of people were trying to get me to go to their church. The Baptists was trying to get me to this was trying to say, oh yeah, fresh meat on Eleuthera. So they like, okay, you can come to my church. And then I made a point, Curling. I said, hey, if I'm going to visit another church, that's fine. But the first church I visit is going to be a Methodist church, and not a Bahamas Methodist church, an MCCA Methodist church.
You went to
and Reverend Rose family.
James Siston.
Reverend Rose family was the family that was in charge of the MCCA Methodist Church in Eleuthera. The settlement that I was teaching was James Siston, and I made sure I went to their church first, because nobody was going to have my name in the streets. Say, oh, Tiffany went to all these other funny church, and they didn't even go to her own church. And there was an MCCA church, even though it was small, but the Spirit of the Lord was still there.
And there was a lot of things that you could have contributed to that particular church to help with its growth and to help the younger persons.
This is what I'm saying. This Methodist church has caused me to have so much blessings in my life, because when I went to Eleuthera, I didn't know a soul. You know what it is to come off an airplane this is my experience when I moved to Eleuthera. I came off of the airplane by myself. Nobody was there with me. And it's like you walk into a building and you know no faces. Like no one's face is familiar to you. And I remember feeling so lost at that time because I'm like, I'm in a strange place. It's my first time being away from home. And I'm like, OMG, I am literally on my own. I can rely only on God. And when I got there, the Lord just made so many provisions for me at that time. And one of the provisions was for me to meet up and link with Reverend Rhodes' family. And to this day, I call his mom, his sister, my sister, his brothers, my brothers, because they took me in. And that Methodist connection that we had allowed me to blossom while I was there. And for me to find that void that was
Right.
there, because I would have left my parents here in Freeport and I would have left everything here in Freeport and moved to a different island, and they took me in and made me feel so welcomed and so loved because of this Methodist connection. So don't think that you just passing through. These things have like cords that lead out elsewhere that's going to be a blessing for you in your life. So you have to have dedication. If I did not have that and I was moving from church to church or moving from this place to that place, who's to say that my life would have been a lot more difficult because I didn't have that rooted stability in this Methodism that I am so proud to say that I am Methodist.
So very nice. You're an absolute poster child. You're a
Indeed.
poster child for Methodism. MCCA Methodism.
That's right. I make that clear distinction because there was opportunities for me to then go with the other Bahama Methodists, and I'm like, no, my root is here with the MCCA, and I stand firm in the ideologies and beliefs of that. No one's going to change that for me.
Tell me some of the things while you're here back with us in Grand Bahama. Tell me some of the things that you have been doing in the St. Paul's Methodist Church, whether you were part of the choir or you were usher or what have you. Just share with us some of the things that you, Tiffany, has been doing, have done.
Well, from I was young, I've always been involved in the church. Like I don't know what it is. I didn't know what it was to just sit down and enjoy the service.
Tell me about it.
So this is what I'm going to tell you. So, I have always been involved in every single thing in the church, whether it was Sunday school.
Yes.
We have our Christmas production, and Faye love our Christmas productions. But it was before and Faye I remember it was Sister Marva Monroe, and then I remember Sister Merlin Cooper. And those were the three that I remember as superintendent ministers of the Sunday school.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I missed anybody, but I remember those three. And so we always had the Christmas production. I was a part of that. And Mrs. Poitier, I think we had this connection.
Annette
Poitier. We had this connection with Nassau where the youth from Nassau came down for like a retreat. And it was beautiful. We stayed in Port Lacaya. And we did different events and things of that nature. So what I'm saying, I would have been a part of the Sunday school and then the youth group. And my mom was an usher in the church. And the head or the coordinator of the usher ministry, the late Estelle Bethel, knew that my mom had a daughter who was now coming of age, and she kept watching me and how I conducted myself. And my mom used to have me dress up in all those Dorinsa dresses, have my hair in the frilly socks and all of that. So Miss Bethel must be had her eye on me a long time. So she said to my mom, say, hey, your gal, she could be an usher. So she waited till I got at least 14, 15. And I was the youngest usher on the ministry. They're standing in the front. You're going to make us young people do all the brunt work.
Right.
So I was an usher from a teenager up until my adulthood. So when I became of age and I would have been a part of the youth group. I then became one of the head ushers of the church. And I was still the youngest person in the group. And as being a young individual, sometimes it can be a bit difficult trying to tell older women what to do. Oh,
Right.
child, I had a time, but
But you did a wonderful job.
I tried my best,
Because
Lord.
when I came to St. Paul's Methodist Church, of course, you were the usher president. And so I learned from you. I had to uh, implement things that I saw you doing. So you must have been very, very good because it's reported that I was a very, very good usher president.
Amen. That's good.
And I learned from Tiffany.
I
All
learned
right?
from my mom, who then learned from Sister Estelle Bethel. And I think, I don't know what it is. It's just like, I think my parents, because my parents are older, like older than my parents, I would have a lot more wisdom than them because I would be like drinking from that fountain from my parents. And
Right.
so a lot of things that I do is very mature. I'm very mature for my age. And so I think it's because of my parents are older and you watch them, they were settled. They wasn't into the foolishness and stuff like that. And so they steered me in the right direction.
You were grounded.
Grounded.
You
And
were
so
grounded.
when I came into the usher ministry, it's like I had a poise that not a lot of persons my age had. And I still carry that throughout my adulthood. And it's only because I would have been watching my parents, especially my mom, obviously little girls with their mom. And she would teach me and say, hey, don't do this. You sit this way. Don't say that. And she had me like how a princess have to behave themselves
Oh,
out
all
public.
right.
Yes, you have to stand up straight. Don't say that. That's how my mom had me. And so it's just something that they
Well,
put
it
inside
worked.
of me. It did.
It worked. Oh my
did.
goodness, it worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the
Did
ministry
you
was
have an
fun.
opportunity to teach then the Vacation Bible School?
Oh yes, I tell you, it was a part of everything.
Everything.
If you name it, I was a part
You
of
was
it.
a part of it.
Vacation Bible School, I taught, and I think that's where I got my footing in teaching.
All right.
Because I would have placed it on my resume that I taught. I had that experience, and my first teaching job, it was because of a Methodist connection. Because Mr. Alves,
All right.
what's his name?
Aubrey Alves.
Aubrey Alves.
From
He was the art
Trinidad
teacher.
or Barbados?
Guyana.
Guyana?
Yes.
No, that's where he is.
He was the art teacher at our school, St. Paul's.
Right.
And Mr. Alves has been my teacher for many years. And so him watching me with Vacation Bible School, because he would come and do the art lessons, he then gave a word to Sister Priscilla Hagan, who is the pastor's wife of School of Prophetic Ministries.
Right.
She was looking for a teacher at the time, and he recommended me to her for teacher because he saw me with the young kids, dealing with them and all of that. And I was like, teacher? I don't want to be no teacher. And so the opportunity, I just started asking persons around. They said, well, it's kindergarten. So, and I went, and I tell you, I fell in love with it. I love teaching, and especially the babies, because it's they're a clean slate. They haven't been corrupted by any other teacher or developed any bad habits. I can literally pour into them what exactly I want them to be and how I want them to, the kind of student I want them to be. So this Methodist connection is what got me into teaching, because I remember as a child, I said, not me teaching. I know how these young people just carry on in the classroom. I am not going to be a part of that. And look, teacher, me.
Really?
Methodism, yes, I did. Now that I talked to you about it, this is the connection. It was because of Mr. Alves, who then told Mrs. Hagan, and I then was teaching with her for about 2 years, and then I decided to go off to COB here, apply to COB here to become a teacher. A primary school teacher.
So that's where it came from.
And
Ah.
I love teaching.
Well, you are
students.
so good with children. You have a
Yes.
natural. I've seen you do the children's story.
Message,
Or the children's message, and you're so good with children.
I love teaching children. I do. I really love teaching them. And then you know what's the best part? I think every teacher may have this experience. They say that when you're bringing a concept and oh, it's like you can see in their face the light bulb goes off and they get it. And that's like the best thing a teacher could even ever ask for. When you see that light switch goes on because of the strategies you would have taught them and because of the steps you would have told them to get to the end, and they do it on their own and they figure it out and they get it. It's like, oh yes, I was like, yeah, I did a good job. They understood.
So you advocating that here at St. Paul's Church, we need to have a preschool that will be a feeder school for going off to St. Paul's College.
I think that would
you
be
can
perfect.
do that.
But I think the school does have a preschool already.
Right, but you see, they're in a different area and the cost is different. But if we had a little preschool here,
yes, I would volunteer.
then Tiffany Armbrister will volunteer to get that started.
No, volunteer to teach.
Volunteer to teach.
Don't. Try to
Volunteer. So I'm going to throw that out there.
Not to run it. No, I can
No,
make
all
that
right. She
very
doesn't
clear.
want to run it, but she'll volunteer to teach. So we'll have a feeder school here that can help our sister schools, St. Paul's College.
And you can ensure, when you do that, you can ensure that, okay, the college can then say, hey, this is what we want these babies to know before they get here. And you focus on that so that when they move into the big school, the transition is so much easier because they would have already gotten the knowledge that they needed to know, so that when they get there, those teachers can just fly with them and they zoom off into their lessons. That'll be perfect.
Ah, you heard that, everyone. She said it will be perfect.
Yes.
So tell me about some of the ministers that you would perhaps have sit down and listen to in St. Paul's. We know that you've dealt with Bishop Rowe.
Closely, yes. That's
Yes.
like my big brother.
Big brother,
when he comes,
yes.
I say, hey, big bro. And he say, hey, little sis. Because of my moving to Eluso.
Yes.
But some of the ministers that would have been under, you mean since I've been here?
Yeah, even the circuit. So it don't especially have to be St. Paul's, but the circuit. Someone who you looked up to, who you admired.
Well, Reverend Hamilton and Reverend Stubbs, they were our reverends.
Right.
They were very wise and knowledgeable about Methodism, and you could see that they were filled with the Holy Spirit too, and they had a genuine heart for the churches. And then we had Reverend Malcolm. I've worked closely with him because he would have been a minister that went to, before he passed away, who went to Eleuthera, and he normally came over and he would preach, and sometimes I picked him up from the airport, or I'd drop him off, or when he's conducting service, he calls me up out of the pew and say, Tiffany, come, you're going to conduct for me. So he sit down, I conduct the service, and he tried to inch me into getting into the ministry. And I say, Rev, you can't be the one to tell me to do that. I have to get the utterance from the Lord first, right? And then we had Mr. Gibbs. He wasn't a minister.
Urban Gibbs.
He was integral in my growing up.
He was a lay minister.
Lay minister, right. But I meant minister was like he wasn't a reverend.
Right, yes.
Yeah. So he would have been teaching at St. Paul's, and then I see him at the church as well. Yes. So there was a connection. He taught my brother too before he passed away. So those are, I'm just calling off names of individuals who were
instrumental, or who you passed
to
through.
me. And Reverend Timothy. I vaguely remember Reverend Timothy, but my mom spoke so highly of him, especially his Bible studies and stuff like that. She got a lot of good teaching from Reverend Timothy at the time when he was here. And then, like I said, Reverend Malcolm, Bishop Rowe, Reverend Stubbs, and Reverend Hamilton.
I since we've been doing this show, those names came up a lot, Reverend Stubbs and Hamilton.
Yes.
And being dedicated Methodists who are so entwined in the Methodist tradition.
Yes.
And so, yes. When I first came here to St. Paul's, they were still alive.
Yes.
And so I was able to listen to them a few times, but it was only for a short period of time because I came here to St. Paul's Methodist church where Bishop ruled, and I think it was Reverend Ware
Yes,
was
Reverend Ware, of course.
here
Oh, Reverend
as
Ware
well.
is a treasure. And not because I call his name last means that he's any least than any of them. No, Reverend Ware has, I mean, the wealth of knowledge. Reverend Ware is so smart. Like, he is
Yes,
so intelligent.
yes,
And you can ask him anything about anything,
anything.
and he can tell you. You ask him about the Baptist, this, that, he can tell you all the
Yes,
history of that. You ask him about, oh, Reverend, why is it that you can't, we don't drink and we don't drink alcohol when we doing the communion? Why isn't it wine? Why is it grape juice? He could tell you why we do it. He can tell you why we use the wafers in
right.
communion, you know what I'm saying? So Reverend Ware has been, that was my minister, Reverend Man. He used to always call me his girl Tiff. Oh man, Reverend Ware was the best.
I
A
think
dream.
person who missed out on the presence of Reverend Vare missed a lot because I got familiar with the Methodist when he used to have some sort of a program on the radio
Was it
or
Vision?
preaching. I don't recall what it is, even if it is Vision,
Okay.
but I remember him preaching, and he had this distinct voice, and so you always know it was him who was preaching, and I enjoyed that a whole lot.
Yeah.
And tell me something. A lot of times, Dorothy Goldsmith, that was a name that came up a lot. Did you have any opportunity to work with her closely?
Yes, Miss Goldsmith, indeed, because she would have been, I think, the women's president for a long time. And I remember when they were traveling to Africa, Johannesburg, Africa, she was integral in ensuring that the women got together and had what they needed to travel there. I mean, my mother and I didn't go at that time, but I'm just saying, like, some of the things she would have made sure was happening. And I knew, like, I think it was every Tuesday or something like that, she used to have a sewing club. And I remember I wanted to learn to sew so bad because I'm like, clothes are so expensive. And if I could learn to stitch up my little dress and stuff myself, I said that'd be good. So she made sure that we got donations of the machines and all of that. And then she was like an entrepreneur herself because she would always try to tell the ladies, say, hey, because I think she had a stall in Port Lakaya where she
Right.
dealt with tourists often. And so any of the new stuff that she would come with, I remember she had this hat that was a cup as well.
Oh,
It was
yes, yes, yes,
it was
yes.
a hat that could transform into a
Yes.
cup. So I remember she was saying that we can be entrepreneurs. She was very adamant about us, like, women doing their own thing, making their own money. And then she would give us a lot of history too, because she was a wealth of knowledge as well. Before she would have had her injury and passed away, she was a wealth of knowledge because she could tell us, like, hey, these beads that I'm bringing, these are the women of this country in Africa, and this is what they do so that they can have an income for their family. And then she would tell us the importance of liaisoning with different individuals, with different groups, to see how, there are other individuals in the world who are not necessarily as fortunate as we are, and these are some things that we can do to assist. So she was very integral in that, shedding light on certain things. And I remember when I did the bulletins for the church too, because I worked in the office. I tell you, I
What?
was all over.
You was all over.
I worked in the office, and she was one of the individuals who would both her, Sister McQuella, they were my proofreaders.
McQuella.
Sister
Thank you.
McQuella Smith and Sister Goldsmith, they were the ones who would proof my bulletins for me. And I remember it was a big service for conference, and Reverend Rule was just the superintendent at the time. The bishop was
Brown?
yes, Bishop Brown. He came, and I remember I had to hurry up, finish up this stuff because they weren't used to, like, the fancy bulletins that we do with all the graphics and all that. They just would, be a plain bulletin. And so I'm working on all the graphics and making sure everything. And on the front page, Curly, and big mistake there. And Sister Goldsmith, was the one who pointed it out. And so I had to hurry up, at least take out the paper to make the correction so that at least we wouldn't have so many of the booklets that had that mistake on. And I remember she showed me that, and she was like, oh, on the first page. I'm like, well, I tried my best. It was a rush, and they just give it to me 2 hours ago, and I you know what I'm saying? But child, she sure let me know that mistake. Front page.
I'm certain you learned from that.
I tell you,
And
I
that
never
took
made a
you
mistake like that
the
again.
rest of your life, because whatever you're doing, you always double check your work, right?
I tell you, I
Yeah.
was all over the
So
church.
tell me something. Tell me some of the places that you might have traveled representing uh, the church. Did you go to Turks and Caicos? Did you
Oh, yes.
on conferences? Tell me about those.
Yes. Okay, so like I said, there were encuentros when you were like a teenager, a young adult, and I went twice. Went to Antigua, and then I went again in Jamaica because it's held every 4 years. So I would have went at the Antigua one and then the Jamaica. I think the Jamaica one we had, I can remember more individuals there. We had Derica Delancey. That's Sister Gloria Delancey's granddaughter.
All right, good.
Then we had Donovan Monroe. That's the son of Marva and Martin Monroe.
Good.
Then we had Zia Lewis. She's Adams now. She's the
Reverend
daughter
Kenneth
of Reverend
Lewis.
Kenneth and Lynette Lewis. Myself, daughter of Mac and Loy Smith. We had, Sean Lee Camp, the son of
Ernie Camp,
Ernie and Shauna Camp. And I think Rosa went again. I'm not sure. I think Rosa Moore, daughter of
Amanda and Zephaniah Moore.
Right. I think she went in Jamaica as well. So those individuals were the ones we went with in Jamaica. And like I said, some of them that we even went, that I grew up with, they're no longer here at the church. And I think I'm a bit, probably, I don't know if I want to know the reason that they left. It's like a little shy to ask them about why. Hey,
But
why
you're
you don't
the
come
only
no more?
person in your age bracket that is in this congregation.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, in your age bracket, if I think about it.
Who's
Well,
been here from infant up
Sharika
until...
Adley.
Oh, yeah, Sharika.
Sharika Adley.
Did Sharika go? I think Sharika was at Jamaica. I'm not sure. Yes, I think she was in Jamaica.
And what about Dietrich?
Dietrich is older than me.
Oh, okay, he's out of your. All right.
We
But
are not
so
set.
in the congregation, you're about the only person in your age bracket right now who is active, who's not just sitting on the benches.
Yes, but like I said, when I was in Eleuthera, that would have caused, like, when I moved to Eleuthera and I came back home, I wasn't as involved as I was prior to leaving, because before I left, I was a congregational steward. I was a part of the usher ministry. I read and I did conducted service, all those things. And then when I would have left and went to Eleuthera and then came back, a lot of those things I was no longer doing. And so the opportunity then came for me to do the children's message. And because I enjoy teaching, and religion is one of the subjects I love teaching as well, I said, okay, well, this is an opportunity for me to then at least let the children know that, how strong the power they have in God if they only tap into it. And so that's what I said, okay, that can be something that I can do. But outside of that, that's basically what I do now. But I think it's time that the younger folks get their feet wet in conducting service. Because then if I keep doing it, or if you keep doing it all the time, when are they going to get the opportunity to really get themselves engraved into the church? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a blessing in disguise that I'm now taking more of a backseat role in the church. Even though, like right now, my mom and I decided that, because after Hurricane Dorian, we noticed that the fellowshipping of church and the camaraderie that we used to have prior to that, before the lockdown, was like lacking.
Right.
And then Sister Rosalind Dean passed away.
Right.
And she and her mom, Sister Lucy Fertel, they were very integral in having like the eats after church.
Right.
And so when Sister Rosalind died, I was like, Mom, this is what Sister Rosalind would have made sure that we had at least some bread pudding or something after church. And so I said, you know what? I think the church saying doesn't have the funds to necessarily put towards the eats afterwards. So I said, well, this can be something that we can be a donation for us to bring the
bring it
fellowship back.
And you see, it's been bringing it back, right?
There's
Big
more young
difference.
people in church. 'Cause
Yes.
who knows the plight of individuals in the church? Who's to say when they leave out of here that they have a meal that they're going to eat when they get home? And so it's perfect that
It
now
is
that we
perfect.
have that food at the end, like people can come get their belly full. If you want seconds, come right along. It's like there's enough there for everybody. And I noticed that especially the younger kids come and they have their food, because people may come to church and they're dressed up and they're smiling, but you don't know what issues they're having at home. And we
Totally.
took the page out of Sister Rosalind and Sister Lucy's book to say, hey, this is something that the church needs.
Yes.
And that we always did. So why not continue it, even though that it is not something that you necessarily get a monetarily reward for, but it's something that you get blessed with spiritually.
That's right.
So that's why we continue. And I say, Mom, let's just do it. Whatever it is, I just use my tithes and offering to go towards the kitchen ministry.
Right. That's still offering. That's still an offering to the ministry. Because when we put money there, we want that money to spend for the ministry. And if that's what you're doing, then, God just blessing you a whole lot. But I know that it has been a blessing for me, because many times by the time I get home and I finish the production of the Facebook and the service on YouTube and everything, it's almost 4 o'clock.
I can imagine.
I am starving, so
Yes.
I'm happy that I have some food that I would have taken home,
Right.
and I can just
Well,
get
that's
some
beautiful.
coffee. And
That's perfect.
so it's wonderful,
I'm glad. And and it's like it's amazing how the Lord works, because Mommy, before I even mentioned it to her, she said the Lord was dealing with her with it too.
All right.
That's something that she could do, and she was like, boy, she didn't know how she gonna make it because she have a little pain. And then I just came and Sister Rosalind had passed, and I said, Mommy, we need to do it in honor of Sister Rosalind, even if it's just this serve this week. And then this week turned into every week, you know what I'm saying? And so it's the inspiration from the late Sister Rosalind Dean why we decided
that
that
is so beautiful.
Yes, and Rosalind is
That's
such
wonderful.
a sweet person. And her and her husband, they made sure that they collaborated and they got certain things. It might not have been every Sunday, but she used to take the initiative to say, hey, I am going to do this. And that was the inspiration behind it.
Well, that's tremendous. As a matter of fact, speaking of Rosalind Dean, I spoke with her husband on Sunday and tried to find out if he would continue with the kitchen or even by their place.
Okay.
And he is so heartbroken. He said, no, he can't. He needs his wife.
Yes.
So, so sad. It is so sad.
I know.
But I'm so thankful for your mom and your dad, because he would, of course, play a role in that as well, and yourself in getting the kitchen restarted again.
Yes, and then you'll be surprised. People just want to see you start something, and every week somebody will come to my mom and say, hey, I'm going to give you $10 for this week, or I'm going to make this for next week, or I'm going to... So it's then bringing everybody together. It's not just like, oh, we doing it and ain't nobody else need to bring nothing else. No, the more the merrier, because we are all going to be blessed by it.
Yes.
So it's now creating a different avenue for other individuals to be blessed, because when you say, okay, I'm going to donate this loaf of cake for the after eats, the Lord gonna reward you for that. Or you say, I'm gonna come and help you serve every Sunday. The Lord's gonna reward you for it, because you get to take home maybe a little more than everybody else, because you're helping to serve. So it's a blessing all around, and it's never enough, because we can always share it with everybody.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy St. Paul's Methodist Church. Like all churches and all places that you have to deal with people with, you have your ups and downs.
Right.
But when you love the Lord, you can put all of that aside.
Yes.
You can put all of that aside.
Yes, it doesn't matter.
And there is love in the Methodist Church.
Yes.
There is genuine love.
Yes.
Brothers and sisters, when we sit out there and we fellowship, for the 2 or 3 years we weren't able to sit in fellowship, and now we can sit down and fellowship and talk
about your
and,
week.
and watch husbands trying to get their wives to let's go
They
because they're sitting down talking, right?
talking.
But it is great, and that's one of the blessings. And if this program is able to help anyone on there who are thinking of doing something for your church, please feel free to bring it up yourself and start doing it. You don't wait on someone
Right.
to ask you. You know what the church needs, do it. And if God is laying on your heart right now, pressing on your heart to do something,
Take the
just
initiative and do it. He will make the provision. Like I said with my mom, she was thinking about it weeks before I mentioned it to her with this particular service. And I just said, mommy, we need to go and do it. I can get the case of chicken and you cook it and I do the bacon and stuff like that. And just from there, it just snowballs into what it is now, something that's beautiful. And it's not like it just has to be those individuals. The Lord will allow others to come in and help out. You'll be surprised.
yes, so persons who are listening to us, if you feel like you wanted to be in the choir, please just join the choir. Do something. If you feel you think that the usher is not enough ushers on duty because we don't have the personnel, then become an usher. People in the sound room. We have people who's needed in the sound room, young persons. So just take the time. Don't just come to church and sit on the benches or in the benches. Just try to find something that you can do. We all have our gifts, and use that gift towards the ministry. Just use that gift, because when you don't use something, it becomes rusty. And for some reason, you go and you visit another church and you probably be the first to say, oh, that church does this and oh, that church does that. But you could have been doing the same thing right here in your church.
Yep.
Yeah. So this was a great interview. And Tiffany, yes, folks, we're talking with Tiffany Armbrister, and we're so happy to have her here because she's one of our young persons. She's like she said, she grew up in this church. She was birthed in this church, and she's still here. She's still happy. She's still contented. She still wants to continue. So that's an amazing thing. We don't see things like that here a lot now, and we don't hear about it a lot. So we are fortunate to hear her story and to hear her advice and to hear how happy she is to be a Methodist, MCCA Methodist.
That's right.
So, Sister Tiffany, thank you so very much. We appreciate you.
It's a pleasure.
Maybe once the school gets started, you'll come back and tell us about the little preschool that you would want to do here at St. Paul's Methodist. Or it could be at St. Andrew's, or it could be at St. David's. It's our sister church, and they're just congregation. We're not separated. And that's another thing that I like about the Methodists. We are not separated because the name of the church is different. All we see them as different congregation, but we're all one happy family.
Yep.
We do things together and we support each other constantly. So thank you so much, Sister Tiffany. I appreciate you. Okay?